What's up, everybody? I hope you're ready for some music. Sorry, I was eating one of these. What's up, everybody? I hope you're ready for some music. That is myself. I don't know what their the official term is, but the things that help your throat kind of open up, or your lungs, or I don't know the science, man. I'm not a scientist. I'm a detective, okay? What the heck? Oh, yes. That is exactly a throat lozenge, I believe. That's how you pronounce it. Don't quote me. If I had a time machine, then I'd go back in time. Spend all of my hours with you, no mistakes of mine. I can only try to take the pain away from your eyes. In my dreams I'll make a time machine, go back in time. 17,000 hours came in, then they flew right by. If I had superpowers, I would freeze the time. I could take you everywhere that you wanted to go. If I had superpowers, I'd do it all again. I don't want to make you cry or ever shed a tear. Hold you when you need me to take care of all your fears. You know you leave me hypnotized with the splendor of your face. If I had superpowers, all your pains would be erased. If we come back to this earth again from this purgatory form, I hope it all plays out again with this fantasy reborn. 17,000 hours came and then they flew right by. If I had superpowers, I would freeze the time. I could take you everywhere that you wanted to go. If I had superpowers, I'd do it all again. I don't want to make you cry or ever shed a tear. Hold you when you need me to take care of all your fears. Take you everywhere that you wanted to go. If I had superpowers, I'd do it all again. I don't wanna make you cry or ever shed a tear. Hold you when you need me to take care of all your fears. No. Oh crap. Oops. Y'all with the memes, dude. The dinosaur meme and the chicken. What's up, nerd slayers? I'm surprised that Reverac was before Magister X, by the way. I feel like the world is word. World is shaking. All right, we got two more. The next one, that was, by the way, Time Machine by Kuko, which is just a fun song to sing at a party or with a group of people. I feel like everyone can kind of like get into the vibe of it. The next one's pretty dark, which shouldn't surprise you if you've listened to me. I can smell the flowers, feel empty now for hours, lost my powers. I can smell the flowers, I'm sick of all these towers, think I've done too many downers. Hard to see the value in these half-hearted encounters. Can't do with the truth, so we just change the world around us to feel and smell just like we wanted to. Fuck what we're meant to do. Can't hang around, be no fool, wasting time just getting high. Getting high to get by. Clear my mind, yeah, blue skies. All this time I've been flying from up here. I can smell the flowers. I'm sick of all these towers. Think I've done too many downers. I can smell the flowers and I'm sick of all these towers. I've done too many downers. Stuck inside a space I have created for myself to be around no one else. I'm working on my spells to get me out of here. Oh yeah, your words are wisdom. Oh yeah, you keep on giving, but now there's no forgiving. And yeah, I'm overthinking. Some days I am just sinking. Static, now I ain't driven. Talking, but I ain't listening. I can smell the flowers, I'm sick of all these towers. Done too many downers. I can smell the flowers and I'm sick of all these towers. Done too many downers. I can smell the flowers, been hanging out for hours. Where's my powers? And I'm sick of all these towers towering over me. Feeling fucking lonely, like no one even knows me. Not even my own homies. Getting high to get by. Clear my mind, yeah, blue skies. All this time I've been flying from up here. I can smell the flowers, felt empty now for hours. Lost my powers. I can smell the flowers, I'm sick of all these towers. Too many downers. I can smell the flowers, felt empty now for hours. Lost my powers. I can smell the flowers, I'm sick of all these towers. Too many downers. That was Downers by Green Tea Pink. If you're wondering why the accent was very accented, it's because she's, I believe, from London. So yeah, she's amazing artist. Go check her out. She's very, I would say obscure. Yeah, I would say she's still relatively obscure. But that's a great one. There's another good one called Human, but unfortunately I can't play it because I can't find any karaoke versions or instrumental versions of it, which sucks because it's an amazing song. I mean, I might play it anyway just because I love it so much, but yeah, it's a very deep song. Like her lyrics are all pretty deep, but you know, Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna play it. Screw it. It's not very long, so sing along. This is called Human by Green Tea Peng. Or Peng. Go look it up.
Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me. Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me. Our clothes are like to hide, so no one knows where I make from. Deep in my soul, taking control, so now we stroll. Deep in these holes, think we control the shit we don't, but fuck we could. I wish we'll whip away these phones, get a bit more holy, see the world more slowly, take time to smell the roses. Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me. Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me. All I know is that I know nothing at all is so mystical and magical. And no, we don't know our potential. How could we when they lie? They cast spells and they try dropping bombs from the skies like we are not stars. Inside me there's a war, Jemai. Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me. Searching for balance, praying for clarity, mastering me naked. Take this identity, tell me it's unity. In la Kesha, look and I am you, you are me.
She's speaking Mayan now. She wrote the song after she came to Mexico City. I believe maybe it might have just been Mexico in general, but and it inspired her. She does have a deep voice. No, she does have a deep voice. She goes, searching for balance, praying for clarity. No, her voice is amazing. I'm glad I can put some people on. All right, the next one. This singer also has an amazing voice. I don't think she's the best writer, which probably holds back her music a little bit, or their music, depending on your definition. But I really like their music, and I think it's unique because it comes from an angle that's not really often approached in music.
I know you're with me, and I'd love to see someone else call you. And all this in between. You think it's hard for me to tell you you're falling. We're falling. Being chill with me. Oh, it kills, I ain't chill at all. And always say I love you, but we ain't together. Do you think labels make it taste much better?
Darling, do you think that if I talk enough, I will make you wanna be mine? We ain't together. Baby, you don't gotta worry about nothing, 'cause everybody knows you and I got that something. Being chill with you. Oh, it kills, I ain't chill at all. And always say I love you, but we ain't together. Do you think labels make it taste much better? Well, darling, do you think that if I talk enough, I will make you wanna be mine? We ain't together. I can watch this fall apart. We say I love you, but we ain't together. Do you think labels make it taste much better? Darling, do you think that if I talk enough, I will make you wanna be mine? Do you? Don't say you and I ain't together. Together, together. Okay, so if you don't know the song or the artist, it's King Princess, which should give you a hint. But the song name is Ain't Together, and she has a lot of other good songs too, but they're much harder to sing. That's a very simple one. So she's got 1950, and another one she has that I like too is damn, I can't remember the name right now. But anyway, look her up, King Princess. And it's funny because like another trans person actually showed me King Princess, and when I first listened, I was just like, what the heck is this? Like, I had that kind of reaction, which is usually a good or a bad thing, but I ended up like totally loving the music. I will say her more recent music is not really my thing. It sounds like Lorde, or Lorde, however you pronounce it, but you know, not everything is made for you. It's all good. Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. I am Nerd Slayer, NS, Justin, whatever you prefer to call me, your host. And yeah, I'm here to talk about Halo Infinite, the recap on that video. I'm here to talk about a lot of MMO news actually, which is exciting and kind of not so exciting because it's not all good news, but there's news about the new Warhammer MMO. There's news about the Arcage sequel. There's news about more gameplay for Ashes of Creation that we'll break down on stream. There was a delay to next year for Throne and Liberty, which was totally unexpected. Mortal Online just had a massive patch or update happen, so I kind of wanted to check that out. Guild Wars 2 is having kind of one of their mini expansions come out in about a week. I'm actually doing sponsored content on that in one of my videos, so we'll talk more about all of that later. Also, whatever questions or concerns you have and you want me to get to, this is always the best place to do it. Like, if you're wondering where's the best place to talk to Nerd on stream, where's the best place to talk to him in general, where can I get the most like attention given to my answers, it's gonna be on stream. And I know that sounds weird because it's like, why not PMs? PMs, I will give you like detailed responses, but they'll take a long time. And it's just because
I'm not only getting a lot of messages throughout the day, it's just overwhelming, guys. Like, imagine the amount of messages I'm getting on YouTube. It's just like, I gotta have like a safe space somewhere. So Discord is kind of like a bit of like a chill spot for me. Like, I don't like it to be necessarily where I'm working. So the community exists there, discord.gg/nerdslayer, because I want to have a community and I believe in community. I mean, that's what I stand for, and believing in online RPGs. But yeah, so anyway, I do want to talk about a lot of that MMO stuff later on in the podcast. But yeah, to finish my point, this is the best place to get your most serious questions and answers. And now, if you have personal stuff you want to ask me, you can ask it here. But I obviously understand if you don't want other people to know about that. Like, you can send me those messages on Discord, and I will get back to them eventually. Again, don't emotionally dump on me or something. I think that's goes without saying, but you know. So since I don't have any questions that I'm waiting for, let me see. No, I don't. I just want to say hello to everybody, including my brother. What's up? I think that's my brother, unless it's somebody else that has a name that's the same as my brother's. But what's up, Lassie? What's up, Wolfbane? What's up, Snoozy? What's up, Cosmonaut, Reverak, Pudmuddle, and Magister? I said it was crazy because Reverak actually beat Magister this time. Maybe it's because we were going to talk about Halo, and Reverak was gassed up to talk about Halo. Okay, so let's talk about the Halo thing first, right? First off, let's just let me pull up the stats. Let me see. But yes, my brother made a good point about when you sing a song in another person's key or voice, oftentimes you're having to change it anyway, because, right, I don't have the same vocal cords or style of voice or whatever else. So that's true. Oh, wow, I just got a really good question on my Overwatch video I'll probably cover on this stream. You know, I'll cover it first. Okay, so let's talk about Overwatch before Halo. I know, surprise, but somebody just got a really good question. And this is why people will sometimes like rail on me for reading comments and interacting with the comments on YouTube, because they're like, they're crap, there's too much of them, you're wasting your time. But I just got a really good question. In fact, 10 minutes ago, and the person asked me, now that the game has been added to Steam regarding Overwatch 2, and has this overwhelming negative feedback that has come with the decision, would you like to add anything to your video about it? And I actually would. Let's talk a bit about like the Steam release. What reason would ever make a game publisher company that has been known to basically have its own launcher and entire ecosystem and fan base launch on Steam? I can tell you that it's only because they confirmed in their recent financials, as in the beginning of the year, that Overwatch 2 was bleeding players, and it wasn't doing that well. So that's the reason why Activision Blizzard decided to go to Steam in the first place. And I think people have to be honest about that sort of stuff. Like, people want to create narratives around it, and you can reap the success of the narrative, but suddenly if we want to talk about why they went there in the first place, nobody wants to talk about that. And it's like, they went there because they weren't making enough money to satisfy whatever their bottom line was, and it actually made their entire bottom line drop, which is why they had to take action. For people that don't know what that means, when suits actually have their bottom line and the overall corporation affected, they're going to make things happen. That's why stuff started to happen within Activision Blizzard and within these companies and cancelizations and so on and so forth. And so my thoughts are this, like, I don't think that, like, okay, so let me talk about reviews for a second. In all of my Death of a Games, I always talk about the critical reviews and the player reviews. Now, this is a bit of like a kind of a trick in a sense. Like, and what I mean is, like, I don't fully take them that seriously. Nobody really should. And what I'm saying is that when I'm looking at critical reviews, I'm looking at them with the lens of looking at a critical review, which means that I know that oftentimes these companies have sponsors and publishers they have to be nice to. They're not always going to tell the truth. Sometimes they'll put little inklings of the truth in there, but you have to kind of comb through and find it. Other times you just realize that many critics don't play or understand the types of games that they're covering enough, which is not necessarily their fault when they're just given that game to cover, right? But like, still, it's just a thing that happens. So that's my stance on critical reviews, is that they're basically bought the majority of the time. I'm sorry, that's just how the industry works. Anyone that exists in any of those companies can debate me on that topic, live stream, whatever, video, and we can go down to the brass tacks. And the reason why is I made a video about this, which is follow the money. Anytime you follow the money, you know where somebody's agenda is coming from. Critical reviews, why are they nice sometimes? And suddenly give games that don't deserve a 9 or an 8 or a 9. Look at what the front page ads are. You know what I'm saying? It's not that complicated to try and put 2 and 2 together. With YouTube content creators, we're a bit more kind of like, you know, loose in a sense. Like, it depends more on our personal taste and interest. And mind you, I'm not going to sit here and say that none of us have agendas or whatever, or don't have particular things that we're interested in. But you get more so of what you're going to get from content creators, which is why content creators doing reviews and impressions and so on and so forth took over the industry from the critical perspectives, and why they're not nearly as taken as seriously as they were before. Now, that's a good segue into my player and user reviews. Now, these are very helpful, but you also have to look at them again with the correct lens. And the reason that for that is that oftentimes that people give feedback, they're not very good at giving feedback. That's just very true. People think that what they're saying is helpful. They think that they're identifying things. In many cases, they leave a 1-sentence response, 2, 3 sentences, don't detail what the issues were because they feel emotional about it, and talk about and feel that emotion first, which is very valid. I'm not trying to dismiss or demean emotion. Anytime I ever talk about someone being emotional, realize I'm not just being like, oh, you're emotional. It's like, no, being emotional is a state of where it's like, it's harder to be rational in. So it doesn't mean that you're bad for being that way, but it does mean that it's going to be harder for you to take stuff in. And so, you know, regarding Overwatch 2 and the player perception of things, is that previously there was not any developer, or rather player avenues to really vent about the issues in the game. And that's because on Overwatch subreddit, the moderators there are moderating your content. And for anyone thinking that I'm creating a conspiracy, I know I've posted on these places before. I know other people who've posted on places like this before. They've told me even just recently they've gotten posts removed because they were talking about the game in a critical fashion. So on and so forth, right? These Reddit spaces that are supposed to be public and open end up being controlled by people that basically have agendas. So in a sense, there was nowhere for people to talk about Overwatch. Overwatch 2 comes out, quote unquote, then relaunches, so to say, on Steam, or gets ported there, whatever you want to call it. And suddenly now everybody has a way to say something, you know? Everyone can actually speak their mind. And that's why you saw this massive negative response. Now, what I think is interesting is not this happening, because there's not a whole lot you can glean from people basically rage baiting, downvoting something and being overly emotional about stuff like that. It's useful in a sense because you identify there's a problem. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But at the same time, you're sitting there and you're just like, how much can I actually learn from that, even if I was a developer trying to take this critically? And in many cases on many of those reviews, not very much. And for people wondering that sucks, trust me, I make videos about reviews all the time. I comb through so many user reviews because I have to, because many of them are not very good. So it's a concept that developers and me, content creators, we all have to take into consideration, which is that if you want to know what people think about a game, you have to pay attention to the user scores and the player perceptions. Now, that being said, when I say that there's interesting with a smirk on my mind about, or on my face with the whole perception and reactions to all of this, is that some people on the side that support Overwatch use it as a moment to say, see, they're just rage baiting and there's nothing that they could actually hate about the game. And it's like, why did they come to Steam in the first place? They'd never have came to Steam before. Why did they come to Steam? Use your head for a second, man. They came because they weren't doing very well, right? So in a sense, where there's smoke, there already was a fire and it raged and burned, right? And then it launched on Steam and everybody talked about the fire already going on, but also simultaneously created another fire, because that's how angry mobs with torches work, right? Enough of them get together, create the lowest reviewed, game in history. There's some truth in that, but there's also a lot of false in that. The false comes from not necessarily not being real, but being so charged up with all of this emotion that it's hard to actually understand what's going on. But don't for a second fall for the people that are saying, oh, but they like the game, they actually support the game. And it's just like, you don't really know any of that stuff. And for people that look at people's play counts and like how much hours they put in and then try to make judgments off of that, I think that that's incredibly cringe. You do not know how people's brains or minds work. For example, people like me will still put in 100, 200 hours into a game because I'm reviewing it, or I'm doing an impressions for my audience to know what the game's about. Meaning that I might know it sucks. I might not like the game, you see what I'm saying? But I don't also, in a sense, have really much of a choice because I've chosen to cover this field, if you will. But yeah, so with Overwatch, that's my thoughts about that Overwatch. Great question, by the way, and that kind of snuck in. I didn't really expect to talk about that, but there we go. What was I going to talk about? Oh yeah, I was going to pull up the video, and that's what I was going to do in the first place. Okay, so the video so far has gotten about 209K views, which is like insane, in just a couple of days. And also, it's my alarm. Features. Yeah, so it's done really well, and it got like an insane amount of comments. And there's a couple things that I want to talk about regarding the subject of the video. So for starters, one thing I always like to talk about with my Death of a Game videos is things that I think that I messed up on immediately. That's kind of what I like to lead with. And I think it's just, you know, my personality, but also it's easiest for me to just think about the things that I mess up on. Sorry, it's unfortunately how my personality works. I blame either my household or being a martial artist, kind of both of those as well, I guess, since they go hand in hand. But yeah, so the thing that I think I messed up the most on the Halo Infinite video is, and this might surprise some people, it's not talking about MCC enough. And the reason for that is because I already took the time to talk about the other Halo projects, and MCC was a Halo project, and yet I never talked about it. And I think it's problematic because talking about Halo Infinite, or rather talking about the story of Halo Infinite in 343 Studios without talking about MCC is selling the story short. And the reason for that is for people that don't know and weren't there. When MCC came out, it was supposed to be this huge like deal, right? Remastering of the first game, the second game. This was supposed to be essentially, in many cases, like 343's home run. That was just pre-built, right? All they had to do was just do it right. And when it launched, it did horribly. It did so bad that it was crashing all the time. It wasn't consistent. There were playlist issues. The population just died. And I would say it probably went on like that for maybe almost 3 years. Like an absurdly long time that you wouldn't even believe. And then finally, news comes out that a mod team, El Dorito, reverse engineered an old Halo Online version that launched in Russia and basically found a way to create like the Halo 3 source code or get access to it. And so they created the El Dorito project, which got Microsoft's attention to then get them involved in the MCC project as well. So all of that combined, they ended up creating in conjunction the game and fixing the game and so on and so forth, whatever else you want to say. And it ended up being in a really good state. I still play MCC. I played it yesterday. I play it almost every day, honestly. Just for a couple of games. But yeah, MCC was like a success later on, and reportedly only really a success because of a particular group of leaders or dedicated Halo fans basically said, hey, this is not right. Let's fix this. I've heard conflicting reports onto who exactly led that charge. For example, the studio current head was also a leader on design at the time on that given subject or sector, Pierre. And so people have told me that Pierre was the one to give the success for MCC on, but also Chris Lee was brought onto the project to work on MCC. And people most famously, this is probably most publicly said, he gets the credit for saving MCC, if you will. Well, now Pierre is the head of the studio, and Chris Lee departed sometime before Infinite came out. And that created some drama and some conflicting accounts of who was in the right and what or why for the reasons. But yeah, I would say overall I probably should have talked more about MCC. I think it was very relevant and would have helped people understand a bit more of where people like me are coming from, but also just like the issues with the company in general. Yeah, exactly. 343 fumbled hard on MCC at launch, but they ended up kind of fixing it later on. And so that's probably the thing that I think I messed up on the most, honestly, is that would have added, I think, a lot of crucial context and detail to the story. I know it would have made it longer, but I think it was relevant enough. That being said, I'm trying now to analyze in my head other things. I wish I could have taken longer on it because I got even more developer messages after the fact. In fact, like the day of I was publishing the video, I was getting messages from people, so it's just like, these videos aren't live or organic, you know what I mean? They're static. So it means like you launch it and it's pretty much gonna stay the same. And that's unfortunate because it means I can't really add anything else to the story. But that's why I like to have streams like this, so I can talk about stuff like that, where it's like, what would I have added? What would I have done differently? I would probably have said that. Also, there's a funny story about the gameplay footage. There's a lack of, was pretty raw. What do you mean? Were you pretty raw or was it pretty raw? Oh, you want me to talk about the backlash just in general? But one sec before that, I wanted to talk about something funny that happened during the process of making the video. So when I was recording Halo Infinite, I was making my own footage. You see some of it in the video, but there's actually not a lot of it. And if anyone noticed, there's only a couple of clips from me actually playing Halo Infinite, specifically. All right, this is embarrassing. It was late at night. This was like one of the first times that I had drank in like a long time. I was drinking socially, and I was hanging out with friends. And I came home, and I didn't have enough space to install a game on my hard drive. So I was just combing through my like files, and I'm just like delete, delete, delete. Well, I wake up the next day, sure enough, I deleted all of my Halo Infinite footage. So that footage that I went and recorded was basically brand new, which is why it was so funny when some people were trying to be like, you haven't played the game since Bonnie left or some shit. It's like, bro, the footage is literally from like last week. You can even look at the footage and see that it's completely brand new based on the event and challenges that were shown. So it's just like, and I played Squad Battle in one of the games, which only came out recently. So that was like a funny thing that happened that kind of sucked because it was like, I had a decent amount of footage that I had been saving for probably the course of like 2 years. I'm talking like crash footage, I'm talking getting DC'd, I'm talking ranked wins, ranked losses, ranked DCs, like the whole gamut, glitches, bugs, game ending bugs, game win, you know what I'm saying? Like all of it, I lost all of it, dude. So that sucked. I'll be right back, by the way, guys. I gotta go to the restroom because I gotta get really into this story. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I deleted those clips. Sucks. That's the story. There wasn't a good reason. It was just an accident. So Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have as much clips as I wanted. I would probably say that that's another thing that I'll be critical on myself about on the video. Because I wish I just had a lot more clips of myself playing. And I know that might not matter to some people. But I don't know, it matters to me, I guess. Alright, so someone mentioned, Ryan is the first person that mentioned someone on Twitter was attacking the video. And then someone asked me, well, I covered the fall of Human Head Studios. Could you give me some examples of the games that they made? Because I can't remember them off the top of my head. And then Daedalus, by the way, how's it going, Daedalus? Did you get any backlash after the video posted? It was pretty raw. All right. I think he meant the video was pretty raw. I don't want to make an assumption, Daedalus, I'll let you explain. But let's talk about the video and the reception. So currently, as it stands right now, the video has, let me see, 94 or about a 95% like to dislike ratio. So that means that there's 10,000 likes and 584 dislikes. So in the big scheme of things, that's an incredible success, right? Metrics wise, that's far more successful than other videos I've made, actually. I've had videos that have ranked under the 90s before, and not a lot of them, mind you, usually sponsored videos. But every now and then, like side videos and stuff like that will rank under there. But so in terms of just straight up likes and dislikes, in like the reception of it on like analytics, very good reception, like incredibly good reception. Now, where it gets interesting is that the only negative stuff I've gotten about it so far have either been, you know, people that are still playing the game, of course, like I understand that and I expect that, I'm not stupid. Content creators who are still making content on the game. And I mean, there's been one or two former developers who either wish I would have talked more about something else or think that when I was told something by my source, that they think that it's conflicting based on what they experience and what they went through with that given person, without spoiling any of it because I don't have enough information, unfortunately, to make, I guess I would say like a for sure claim or statement. But so there's been some stuff like that that I've gotten, I guess you would say like negative or pushback in some ways. The video was then posted on YouTube or on Reddit, on the game subreddit, and just like the Overwatch video, despite having a crap ton of impressions and comments, it was downvoted into oblivion. And not just downvoted, but like a bunch of like my supposed watchers came in, and that's the thing that I probably dislike the most about people online, is that they, instead of just taking the time to get to know you or ask you questions personally, which is kind of crazy for people not understanding this context. If you grew up on the internet like I did back in the day, that was hard to do. It was hard to like narrow someone down and get contact to them. Like the first time a YouTuber ever responded to me was like, oh my God, like now you can actually talk to YouTubers like fairly easily. And that didn't exist before. So there's some good parts to that and there's some bad parts, right? You're more accessible, so people can technically mess with you more. And that makes people want to go into their shells and not interact with people. Just like the opposite can happen, where sometimes you can be too revealing to where then you suddenly don't want to be revealing anymore. Or maybe you're so revealing that someone hurts you, or maybe you're not revealing enough to where people don't know enough about your personality, so they don't want to watch your content, or they're not as invested as much. So that's why some people want to be honest, of course, with their content, their art. It's coming from them, it's direct from them. But I think for some people, content creation and like media journalism, if you want to call it that, is just a job, or the view of it is a job, not art. And so what I'm trying to say there is that for their perspective, things like customer service, never speaking back to the customer, the customer's always right, we dictate what you should do, so on and so forth, is how a lot of people consume content. That's just being honest. And it's because it doesn't mean that if you don't make art, you're a bad person, but it means that like if you're viewing art in that sort of way, then you don't have a very good view of art. And it's because business isn't all that it means to somebody who's an artist. In fact, many of us artists don't make as much money because we essentially elect to choose the art over the money. In the case of me, I started my career in or on NerdSlayer, NS, my account, a while ago. I was making Overwatch videos. I was trying to be an Overwatch pro. At the same time, was working in corporate cost estimation and project management. Well, after I started making videos about, death of a game, so on and so forth, I eventually got to a point to where I quit my job, even though I wasn't making enough to live off of, and just took a massive risk, right? I did that for art reasons. And you see what I'm saying? So like, I had a corporate job. I could have made a lot more money doing that. I never had issues getting higher paying jobs in my given line of work. Just being honest, it's very niche, but I was pretty good at it. And one of the few people that know anything about it. Yeah, so I never had issues getting hired or getting jobs or like any of that. Like I always worked since I was 16 or 15, and I've been working hard the entire time. So meaning that like none of that has ever been like a struggle or a thought for me. Do I work hard enough? Am I gonna find a chance to work hard? It's like I always had those because I was always working hard to find them. And I got, lucky, and also just had the right sort of skills system or whatever. Now, that being said, when I quit my corporate job, part of the reason that I quit my corporate job was because I constantly would feel disrespected over my work. And I realized that part of it was because my projects, I would kind of treat like art. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did really good on this project. Not only do I want the ownership of it in a certain extent, I want the money for that too. Like, I'm not just doing it for art. Like, obviously I would want the money for that too, but I wanted more say in kind of how things were going. And that kind of started to dawn on me. I was like, like, unless I just like really go up in the power structure, like that's never really gonna change for me. And it was funny, I had this chat with basically the entire district like leader of my department. We were having drinks, and it was funny. At the time I was making videos, and I think this is when one or two of my videos just popped pretty big. And he sits there and he looks at me and he says, you know what? You're not confident enough. You should be more confident and believe in yourself more. He's like, you'll go much further. And little did he know, as he was telling me that, thank you, David Missler, but I was like, you know what? He's right, dude. I told this story before, but this is kind of like my content origin story, which was basically like, nobody else has wasted their life more than me on online RPGs, I felt at the time, and I still feel that way largely, and tested them as much as I have. Not just played them, but tested them, and deeply tested them. I felt like I did. So I felt like, look, even if barely anybody's gonna watch my content, I still feel like my voice should be heard in some way because of that. Because of all the time I've dedicated to these games. I've been playing them since I was like 8. And that has given me some skill, some understanding, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so it eventually got to that point where I was like, you know what? I want to do that. So why am I mentioning this stuff? Well, you can understand my reactions and the kind of person I am after you take all of that into consideration, which is that I got into content creation because I wanted to educate and teach people about MMOs and online RPGs and teach them about the beauty of them, how they mimic the real world in many ways. They can teach you about economies of scale. They can teach you about socialization, how to make friends, how to meet a partner. They can teach you how to create groups of like-minded individuals to go complete a task together. They're very useful in society, not just for playing games, but actually teaching you lessons. They can teach you this sort of stuff. So what I realized is that to be an educator in a field that's not very well understood, in a power gaming centric / gatekeeping field, meaning the MMO genre has always been since its inception, incredibly gatekeeping and kind of like antagonistic. And I grew up in that, so I know. All of that kind of goes into the whole idea, which is that my personality from online coming into this content creator, growing up into adulthood, if you will, I'm 30 now, helped develop my personality and my view of things. And I mentioned this on my most recent video, but this should really easily explain everything to anybody ever wondering about where I stand, like on the Halo Infinite thing, or on some of the negative like perception people had of the video, or saying that, it's clickbait or whatever the heck particular parts you want to talk about, criticism. Like, how does it, I guess, affect me, or how does it bother me? And it's like, the truth is, like, I love discourse. I grew up on the internet. Let me say that for the 20 millionth time. I actually grew up on the internet, meaning that I was in a neighborhood that was poor. I didn't have access to internet most of the time. I stole AOL DVDs to get access to dial-up. I would go into random chat rooms. I was unsupervised, so I was able to essentially live and grow up on the internet. I learned how to make my own computer when I was 13, 14, made my own computer, made my second computer when I was 17, 18. All of this came from learning things on the internet. Learning how to socialize came from the internet. Economy, how to make a sale, it all came from the internet. I was selling gold, I was selling accounts, time cards, whatever I could to keep playing games. That's why I made money when I was young, was just to play games, because I didn't have any money. So like, meaning like that my whole story is in debt or embedded in online RPGs and in some shooters like Halo. It's part of my identity in a certain sense. That being said, because it's part of my identity doesn't mean that I would ever just one-to-one see things one direction. And that's because the truth is as an educator, you can't do that. You can never paint anything as one direction because nothing ever is one direction. So, for example, I spent an hour and 6 minutes talking about the problems I thought Halo Infinite and the company 343 Studios has. Most of the comments and responses to me not only can't cite a single piece of criticism, like literal an actual like article of criticism, they can't even tell me what's wrong about the video. So meaning that from my perspective as an arguer and educator, what I said in that previous video that I didn't finish my sentence previously is that all I care about is making the industry and the player bases more educated about MMOs, online RPGs, online worlds, and online games in general. That's all I care about. If you're wondering what my mission is, what my narrative is, besides making a living off of this, right? Because I have to in order to keep doing it. It's literally just educate people more about online worlds, about common positive business practices, about good companies and good games. That's it. Meaning that actually being liked by a large amount of people or being liked specifically is not the thing that I'm searching for. So this is a hard concept for people. Again, it goes back to the point of people that view it as a common business don't understand that concept. You see what I'm saying? They view it as, well, this is not art, this is just a business, so you should hire a social media manager and they should cover all of your... And that's what probably a lot of YouTubers and companies, because they end up becoming companies, end up doing. I'm two guys, right? And we have a couple of artists that we work with too, but in reality, we're two guys. Both of us are incredibly honest and blunt people. My editor is from the UK and he is every bit of, Brit in terms of his honesty. And I grew up on the British servers of Habbo Hotel, so very much the same kind of ethos that I grew up with, which is why we get along very well, but also because we're very task-oriented and minded. Now, our goals together are to reach as much people as we can that are interested in our given product, which means that it's not going to be everybody, right? So I'm well aware that not everybody will always like my videos, right? Because literally the nature of the video and the subjects that I'm covering are controversial because they make people emotional, they make people angry, and they make people want to respond in a certain way. Now, the thing about me, again, going back to talking about my kind of personality, is that I love to debate. I love to argue. I love to fight, actually fight in real life. I'm a martial artist, meaning that I spar almost every single day, whether it's stand-up, whether it's ground grappling or something. I really enjoy conflict. That's just me. Like, doesn't mean I want to get mugged on the street, right? But given the right context and the right rule sets and the, whatever else caveats, like, really enjoy participating in such things. Discourse and debating with somebody is confrontation, and it is confrontational. And I think that that's something that has been kind of forgotten about and erased in many cases from society, especially in America, because we're horrible at debating in America. I know I walked into debate classes in the top school in my state and was just like, what the fuck are we doing? These guys cannot argue at all. Like, they're literally just reading the material, but they can't actually argue whatever they're trying to argue. And so that's a bit of like, if people wonder where the edge comes from, right? Like, you read a comment of mine, a post of mine, a message of mine. First off, think about what medium you're engaging with me in, or you saw me engage with someone in. Think about that for a second. When have you ever seen me chirp nonstop on somebody on stream? Like, just like, man, this guy, man, fuck him, never. Because no one's ever gotten to me. Sorry, you guys have never, no one would ever get to me in that way. My dog gets to me more than that. Like, no one will ever make me feel that kind of way. So I've never done that, right? I will never have that sort of reaction where it's like, I'm angry. It's like, no, like I genuinely, when somebody says, hey, I hate this video, it might be a character flaw of mine, but I've always actually been interested in why. Like, really, like, why? You know, like, tell me why. And it's funny because that in a modern age and society that has degraded intellectually, this can be proven in many factual cases. I can show you many studies, especially in America, but in Western societies in general, mainly in America. But also the degradation of socialization is a wide known phenomenon at this point. And what that has created, unfortunately, is people that are unable and allergic to any sort of confrontation at all. So meaning that anytime they feel like somebody's arguing against them, they take that as an attack on them. That is not normal. Let me rephrase that. It is not normal to take somebody aggroing against you in a debate or argument as attacking you. It's not normal, actually. That's really weird. It should not be that personal to you. That being said, are they making it personal? Are they attacking you? Are they saying you're an idiot? Are they attacking parts of your character? Are they saying you're a liar? For example, like, did they lead the argument or conversation with such things like that? If they did, then obviously I probably don't need to tell anybody here, but they're not the most rational person that you can engage with. And so meaning that if you choose to engage with that person, you're engaging with them knowing that beforehand. Well, then why would I engage with them? Because I like it. And that's the part that I don't understand how to make anybody else understand this. I genuinely like shitting on people that don't know what they're talking about, that are idiots, and that cannot formulate an argument. Why do I like doing that? Because that's how I grew up on the internet, guys. That's how I came up on the internet. That's what the forums were all about. That's what MMOs were all about. We sat there in the forums and debated each other constantly. You're wrong. My data says it took 0.17 seconds. No, mine says 0.15 seconds. No. That was normal. We didn't get angry about it. We weren't getting butthurt about it. I mean, I give you some great examples. Some of my friends on my Discord are old MMO friends. Like Card is a great example. We have had shouting match. I mean, literally, like shouting at each other, like, because we felt like we disagreed strongly on something. And then immediately after, hey man, are you okay? Is everything okay? All right, no, I just want you to know it's totally respect. I respect you. I like you. I know where you're coming from. It's always love. Because why wouldn't it be? I love Card. He's a great guy. But do we always agree? No. And that's okay. And that's another thing that's weird for some people, is that they don't have friends that they disagree with. So seeing someone debate and go back and forth like that is literally a foreign concept to them. They're like, oh, I've been in public with my best friend, Kwa, for example. I've told you guys about him before. Vietnamese immigrant, one of my best friends, gets me like nobody else. Him and I will have full-on debates where we're yelling at each other in public. And it's funny because one time I sat there and I was looking at Zoe, and Zoe's like looking at us kind of like laughing. And I looked at her and I said to her, I was like, man, I wonder if everyone else thinks we really hate each other. And we just all start laughing. And it was just because it's just like, it goes to show you, like, when you don't know somebody or the context of their relationship, you don't actually understand that. So you don't know kind of how they're ribbing each other and giving each other shit. So for example, if you see me respond to Card, or even people like, on the Discord, Rippies, some of the other people, I'm harsher on them. But I'm harsher on them because I love those guys. I've played games with them. I value their opinions. I'm harsh on them because I actually like them a lot. I respect them a lot. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste my time. I wouldn't respond to them. I wouldn't talk to them. I wouldn't engage with them, right? That's how I deal with people that I don't want to talk to, I don't want to engage with. And so that's different than other people. For some people, as soon as someone disagrees with them, stay away from me. I can't engage with you. I'm not built that way. Like, I just never have been. And partly, again, because of the internet, but partly because of martial arts. It's just how I am. That being said, I'm not saying that like it's like devoid of any negatives. the biggest negative that comes from my perspective being that way is that the truth of the matter is the majority of people don't actually want to talk to you. And that's such a sad, pathetic reality that I constantly have to face every day. But it's just true. I'm just going to be honest. That's the pathetic part of me, is that I really do want to see where people are coming from. And it leads me into taking people that aren't actually being serious actors or debaters or communicators as being serious communicators, debaters, and so on and so forth. So I take them seriously. They don't take me seriously. They just meme or say something offensive. And then it's kind of just like, if I engage with that, it can be fun if I'm just engaging on that level. But if I actually ended up engaging in a debate and then found out they were doing that, then I would have just gotten trolled and wasted my time. So that being said, when I sense that somebody's not taking it seriously and they're not approaching this in any logical sense or process, that completely goes out of the window for me. And that's the part that people talk about, the PR part, which it makes me laugh every time. Guys, when I worked in service industry, meaning I waited tables, when my table started to act unruly in a way that I felt like it was demeaning to me as a human, unlike what most people could take and would take, I would walk up to my bosses and literally tell them, I'm not dealing with these people, you deal with them. It's just my personality, guys. I don't really respect people that are rude. And so I'm not going to give you much respect. And again, I don't really care because the best people in my life were always respectful to me, even when we were engaging in debate and hating each other and being against each other and clashing. We still had respect for each other. And I know that that's possible because I'm a martial artist. I fight with my teammates all the time. We still love each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, I go support my teammates, you know, I whatever, like, I buy them food, I would buy them food, like, because they're my teammates, you know, because I support them. So they can kick my ass all they want. They can say all the things they want about me because they know me. You know what I mean? That's how I am. So the people that are in my Discord that know me, the people that are in chat right now, I see many of you guys here, by the way. What's up? Many of you guys know me. So you guys know exactly what is in store with me, which is that if you're engaging with me on Twitter or on Reddit, I'm probably either going to troll you or not be that nice to you. And it's because those platforms aren't made for that. I'm sorry. I know that hurts your feelings and my feelings too, hurts everybody else's feelings, but those platforms aren't made for being nice to people. They're trolly platforms that are made about being reactionary and essentially getting in short little tidbits on people because nobody else will read anything longer than that. So again, if you're expecting great deep conversation on any of those platforms, not only are you just mistaken in the first place, I'm telling you directly with me, you're literally probably, if I don't know you and don't know the context and don't feel like you're a respectful person, you're gonna get trolled. And isn't that fine? Like, why isn't that not cool that you would do that to somebody else? Just in the same way it's not cool if I do it to somebody else just because I make videos. Like, it's like people want me to suddenly not be myself because I make content. It's like, no, actually, I like that part of myself. I like shitposting. I like responding to people and getting them mad. I think I'll just keep those parts. That being said, that's me personally. I don't make my content just about that. I don't make reactionary content, right? Like, if I did, then my video would have been a lot more hateful and hurtful and mentioned a lot more juicy details that I was told that I did not reveal because I didn't have as much information as I probably should have if I would report on that thing or on that sort of stuff. So I'm not looking to react and hurt people. I'm looking to tell the story as accurately as I can, which means that if anybody, developers, player base, players, whoever is against me, in that vision of doing that, then you're against me and doing my job, right? And again, you might feel like it's your job. For example, in the case of Halo, some people felt like, I must protect this game and franchise. But really, why should you? Why should you? Most recently, Dan Snyder was pulled off of the Washington Commanders after super lengthy, like, court cases and massive buyouts and just so much drama because of mismanagement. Now, in this case, if Dan Snyder running the Washington Commanders was Halo, you guys would just want him to keep the Halo franchise because it's the Halo franchise and hey, they're finally doing something. But the fans of DC got tired of that. They got fed up with it. In fact, they formed groups that literally did a hostile takeover essentially of the company and of the team. Because they're able to do that with how the structure works. So yeah, that's what happened in sports when a similar sort of thing happened where a team was being led to ruin by a given owner. Eventually people literally just said, hey, let's kick this owner out of here. So that happening to 343 whether it does or not, a big restructuring or a completely other company working on it is not out of the question or unheard of. So that's why the loyalty people have for 343 about Halo doesn't make any sense. Your loyalty should be to Halo, the franchise. Halo, the franchise, not Halo Infinite with 343 Studios. It doesn't make any sense, because even if you play 343 Studios as Halo Infinite, that's not where the majority of their force and the Halo teams are working on right now. Anyone want to quote me right now that the majority of the Halo teams working on Halo Infinite? Anybody who is a former developer or current developer want to like talk about that publicly? Like, come on, guys, let's just be honest about it, right? The majority are not working on Halo Infinite. Why would they be? It's not making them that much money. It's a lost effort in terms of making them money in the long term. All they can do now is essentially milk it as much as they possibly can for as little effort as they possibly can. And they're doing a great job of that. I'm not trying to take away from that. They're doing a good job of that. Many companies do good jobs of that. Lord of the Rings Online, Standing Stone, so on and so forth. They're good managers of a game or a given company. But is Halo Infinite alive and well? They canceled all of the campaign content. And not a single person that was debating against me or attempting, since not many people even made a single argument, which is just pretty sad. Like, don't be so emotional that you can't even make single arguments, because nobody will take you serious in any serious context. But no one even mentioned that the campaign got canceled. No one even talks about that part. Isn't that funny? Like, why is it all of a sudden the multiplayer stuff are the only parts that matter when the Halo franchise never worked that way? Because it's free to play. So people think that the rules can just suddenly be changed because they made the game free to play, and it's just not true. It's a Halo game at the end of the day. And them making it free to play was supposed to make them more money. It did not make them more money. I think that's another common misconception, is that, oh, Halo Infinite did it that way because it made them a lot more money. There is no data or source or anything that has ever shown or proven that to me. Literally nothing at all has ever proven or shown that. So even if they over monetized it, you're still supporting a company that still couldn't even make money at doing that. So you're supporting a company that literally could not do business very well. Like, literally could not do business very well. They launched a game, all of the stuff I covered in my video already, notwithstanding, they didn't even know how to monetize the game. So they can't even make money off of the game. And the diehard fans that are left playing the game, for some reason, would want me to defend that. They're not a good business. I care about business as well. I know people think that I'm just the art or story guy, but it's like, no, I actually care about the businesses as well. 343 Studios has not done good business. That is what my analysis was also talking about in that video, which is funny because some people took that personally, especially people that were on the team. They took it like I'm attacking everyone on the team. First off, I called out every leadership position. I did not call it any rank and file. Like, what the heck? Like, why would I do that? And rank and file were primarily my sources. So why would I call them out? Like, in many cases, it sounded like from all my sources, they're just doing the best of what they could, right? Dealing with everybody else above them, putting stuff down on their necks. So yeah, like the whole perception is like, there wasn't any actual credible arguments against what I had said. The only thing people actually mention as being credible criticism, which is kind of a cringe thing to always talk about, because really what it's used as or used for is by people that don't make art to bully other people that make art. They say, oh, this is constructive criticism, while not actually offering constructive criticism. And an example of that is they told me, oh, well, the criticism that I have is you shouldn't cover Halo because recently they put out a couple of maps and the season 5 has been the best season so far, the 7 or whatever. And it's like, did you look at the population? Did you hear what the company said about the game? Like, meaning not you, not you, but I mean like Microsoft, like Suits. Did you hear what they said about the company? Why are you hand-waving what they say about the company? You can ignore me, but why would you ignore what they say? Why would you ignore previous employees? Why? I'm just asking why. Like, think about it for a second. If you're thinking about it logically and actually trying to engage in a discourse, you wouldn't ignore any of that stuff. You would pay attention to all of it because it's all relevant information. The only people that are ignoring stuff like that are people that are trying to say, well, you shouldn't cover this because it's not literally dead. Which, sorry, has been debunked since my series was created. I created my series literally to never only talk about literally dead games. So like, thank God I did that. Otherwise, I would have had to only cover games after basically nobody cares about them anymore. That happens sometimes. Some games can still drum up a lot of excitement after they're dead. Other games can, you know? Other games can't even like summon up any excitement about the game, even though it might be a 20-year-old game or a 50-year-old game or, you know, whatever, like absurd thing. Rune and Pray. Oh, okay, so Rune and Pray is Rune and Pray is from Human Head Studios. Sorry, I'm so back in chat. Yeah, so I think the most interesting feedback I observed was the past few months have been great. They moved away from the problems, which I can kind of get. Game is in a better state today, so is it dead? Yeah, so basically, thank you, Josue, right? Is that Josue? For mentioning that. That's probably like the criticism is don't cover this game because it's actually doing better now. But the thing is that after the most recent content updates, the populations haven't budged at all. Like they've minuscule budging. And that's why nobody's actually made statistical arguments against me, which you could if there was a positive uptrend that was so clear to the eye and so clear to the population. That's why these arguments, I'm sorry, they come off mostly as delusions for me. And I get it, people love the game, so on. So I'm talking about like statistics. They actually come off as delusional when you're not actually talking about, okay, well then how much of an uptrend or upswing did this actually affect the population? And if we can't track that in any meaningful way, then how are we making gains or reads on what exactly is going to happen? Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, which I'm just teaching you guys basic statistics, okay? Basic statistics. I'm not creating any narratives here, guys. Okay, so look at this. 8 minutes ago, there was only 2,600 people playing Halo Infinite. For reference, there is probably over 50 indie games that have more players than that. Like, does anyone actually feel impressed by 2,600 players? You shouldn't. That's not a lot of players. I've tried multiple queues in this game. They literally will not pop. Like, go try it yourself. The player base numbers are there on Steam. Go try it for yourself, right? Now, also look at the 24-hour peak. So when they peaked, they were able to get 6,600 players. Now, that's pretty impressive. It means people are coming home from work. It means kids are getting off school, whatever. They're able to jump their player numbers up. Now, when people talk about the population in the game doing well, here's a couple major events that happened that changed the population and the way that the game was structured. March 2023, big major seasonal update. Game jumps up to 12,000 players peak. Within 1 month, immediately drops down 50%. That is a catastrophic failure, even if it's not just the players on Xbox, which people always like to make as an argument. But we got those numbers too, and they weren't that much more impressive. They were only, I think, about maybe 2 to 3 times more than the Steam numbers, which is not that much more impressive. Like, it just isn't. When the game's on Game Pass, it's like what are we celebrating exactly there? Like, I'm not sure, but that's what the Halo fans are celebrating, is hollow victories like that. So following the 6,000 drop, the next big thing that happened is in June, the game had a Forge update, a couple new maps, Forge map playlists, a bunch of other things added to the game, career rank, squad battle, a few other things that were really positive things that I even experienced in the game. That helped the population jump up back to 8,000. Within 1 month, already back down to 6,800. So where's the trend, guys? Where is the number? Where are the numbers that I'm supposed to be tracking? Where are the positive upswings that keep going so positive up like MCC was doing at one time, that you couldn't ignore it? It's not there. I'm sorry. I know that hurts some people's feelings, but it's just, the data's not there. That's how I'm making my assumptions. I think that's a lot more accurate, you know? I just got a message from one of the designers who worked on Halo Infinite, and their response to me, because one of the people that talked about the project said that a particular person, Chris Lee, was a really good person who led the project, who ended up leaving. Well, this person, Kevin Smith, came out and told me, well, no, that's not true. You were not told accurately. And I was like, okay, so what's the story? He won't tell me. So basically, you just wasted my time, Kevin. I'm not sure why, buddy, but you wasted my time, and you wasted probably your own time too. Because I mean, what exactly are you convincing with that? You're not actually telling me anything. And then the other thing is this is the most recent message he sends me. He says, "Been struggling how to respond, but I'll leave it with this: try and get better sources and not base things off speculation and assumption." But it's not really a valid response because it came from the sources. But yeah, so that's the thing is like in an ideal world, developers that work on projects or used to work on a project would talk to you and be completely honest with you and say, man, this one time, bro, I skipped my lunch break and they forgot to implement a level. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll be honest with you. Some developers will. But since most of these guys are still working in the industry, they're not going to be honest with you. And worse, because they have their own recollections of things that happened. Like, look at the Tim Kaine and Wildstar situation. You have wildly conflicting accounts of what happened within the company internally, meaning that you can't just say, no, that's wrong. Because there's massive conflictions and people talking back and forth. Well, in like the case of Kevin Smith messaging me about, oh, well, your information about Chris Lee's wrong. Well, first off, you didn't give me any information, so you essentially contacted me for no reason other than to just tell me how you felt. Congratulations, I don't give a fuck. Like, maybe next time actually take some time to give me some value and be friendly about it, right? And second off, I told them that multiple of my sources talked about Chris Lee in the opposite context. So meaning that you can't handwave that. That's not how sources work. Sources do not supersede each other. That's not how they work, right? People have different accounts because the story's never one way, right? So people have different accounts. Oh, I thought this guy was mean. Other guy says, it's just John being John, you know? Other guy's like, I don't know, John seemed kind of mad, right? 3 different people can have 3 different perspectives on one event, right? So anytime anyone ever tries to talk to you in an affirmative way about what happened and what the story is and what the situation is, don't believe them. Because if they're not going to actually tell you, like, this guy didn't tell me anything, then they're just basically wasting your time. Developers in the future, if you want to contact me and rail me on something, all for it. List exactly where I was wrong, the details, and then actually try to fill in the blanks. If there's no filling in of the blanks, then it just seems like you're mad for no reason. But let's see where I was at in chat. I finally managed to get to your stream. Oh, I thought you said my Steam. I was like, oh, what are you trying to play? And I wanted to say that it's nice that there are people who analyze games in detail and understand why they are successful. Thank you. I left my HC game designer job for the same reason. The game industry is horrible. Game designers just aren't listened to. Personally, I think we can't just ignore the past few years. I'm personally grateful it's better, but I play Halo so little at this point because of their fumbling. Yeah, and to be clear, like, I don't actually think like those people are trying to say ignore the past 2 years. It's more simple than that. I think they're just trying to be like, hey, like, we still play this game. It's still valid. That's what they're trying to feel like they have a voice. Their voice is being heard. But you're talking to the wrong person. Why are you messaging me and putting messages on my wall when you should be messaging 343 Studios and asking them to care about the franchise that you are so feverishly and blindly supporting? You see what I'm saying? It's just the hate is targeted in the wrong place. When you do a death of a game on Destiny 1 and 2, it's gonna hurt, I bet. You want me to cover Shellfire? Never heard of it. The Halo video was amazing, thanks. Debating your mom. Fair enough, fair enough. Thanks for the Halo video. Can hear the passion and hurt in your voice for all we wanted Halo to succeed. Yeah, and at the end of the day, no true fan would want a franchise to fail. Even if it's just like, I want it to fail because I'm mad I lost a game. It's like, no, like, in reality, that you probably shouldn't feel that way, right? Like, I don't think anybody that loves Halo wants Halo to fail. Like, why would they, right? But simultaneously, I don't have to sit here and act like whatever current Halo iteration, just like whenever Halo 4 was not impressing anybody, and I did the same thing during that time, I just didn't have a voice, nobody knew who I was saying the same stuff, which is basically like, we don't have to actually support this, and we don't actually have to be okay with this. And obviously that makes some people mad. Koss said he knew from the first week of release that they wouldn't be getting single-player content. Wow. But what gave it away for you, Koss? You just had a hunch? How do sponsors work? You get contacted by agencies, and they usually will shop a price for you. And then you choose the price, and then you do whatever you agree on the structure. Do you think Microsoft's corporate structure and culture is causing games like Halo Infinite and Redfall to crash and burn? I think that there's a lot more detail mentioned there than I probably covered at all, but that's because Microsoft does a great job of shielding itself through the use of their 343 Microsoft employees. So they got the brunt of the problem. Bonnie Ross, Dan McCon, despite most people not knowing him, Frank O'Connor, those people got the majority of the heat, I think, from Microsoft 343, or from the haters. And that's not me like taking anything away from them. Trust me, like I did the video on them, so on and so forth. What I'm saying is that they were lightning rods. And so Microsoft got to kind of avoid the majority of whatever the problems were, because those were the people enacting Microsoft's heavy fists. So you see what I'm saying? So in a sense, there's a story within the story, which is that I'm telling the story of 343's studios and top down, when in reality, I don't know, and I would not have any access to knowing what the story is even above that, at the levels that are even higher than that. You see what I'm saying? And for anyone saying that I should be able, it's like, how am I gonna be able to do it? There's no way I can be able to come up with that kind of stuff. Unless people from all the way up there are telling me stuff like that. So in a sense, it's like, yeah, I mean, really the story could be about Microsoft fucking it all up, you know, and putting the wrong leaders in charge. Or it could be 343 Studios and internally, It's hard to say exactly. I'm willing to think that it's probably a combination of both, but I will admit that there's probably a lot more to say about the Microsoft part than I can say, and I have said. And part of my reasons for that is that I have contacts at Microsoft, and they've told me a lot about how Microsoft functions. And another thing I will say is that on the video that I posted, Halo Infinite, did anyone see what the pinned comment was? I don't like to think about endorsements, but I just like to think about, what does somebody that was heavily involved in the entire process think? That's the Marty O'Donnell saying, well done. There's so much more to tell. And based on that message and a couple of other messages I've gotten behind the scenes, it does seem like that very much is the case. But more so in the case that maybe there's a lot more going on from the Microsoft edge than people really think or know. And obviously, you know, I'm doing my best to be able to tell those stories, but it's not going to be easy when, you know, who's going to talk to me about that stuff? Yeah, so Josue, that was a comment that I actually responded to on stream. Great eye. I'm glad that you're very perceptive, but I'm glad you noticed that as well. What they said is they wanted to focus on what Halo was really about. Overwatch said the same thing after Overwatch 2. And then I sat there and I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, in Overwatch, it's kind of a crappy thing to say, but I get it. And Halo, it's like, but is it really? Like, multiplayer was not ever always what this game was about, including competitive multiplayer. So, yeah. My voice doesn't look like me. Thanks, I guess. Why does my Blizzard corporate speech translator stuck on "you will be disappointed"? What made you come up with the name Nerd Slayer? Partly for all of what I was talking about, right? Was essentially that I grew up kind of learning how to engage on the internet, which made me very confrontational, because most people that grew up on the internet like I did, we were all kind of angry and confrontational with each other, especially MMO players. So Nerd Slayer came from that, where it was like a bit of like an alternative like persona. I was not that way or amongst my friends or in real life, because I felt like I couldn't be. I felt like I couldn't relate as much. So Nerd Slayer was kind of like my other identity. And I had a couple of other names before that I named myself after that were very confrontational. And Nerd Slayer was always funny to me because people would always either call me a nerd or say like, whenever I was around nerds outside of the context, they would say, oh, you're a jock. So it was like I was getting called like from both sides. And so in my head, like I came up with this stupid thing where I was like, well, I'm a nerd who slays nerds. And then the whole origin story is that I had to become a nerd to do it. So it's like people will ask me, are you a nerd that slays nerds or a nerd that slays? And it's like, I'm both. It's not really that much, you know, like more complicated or great than that. The series is more complicated than that. I can give you a story on how I formulated the series, but my name, Nerd Slayer, very much is just says nerd in it, and I like when people call me nerd and don't mind. It doesn't bother me. It's almost kind of like making the word or insult useless, essentially. And simultaneously, the Slayer part, I think, really summons my personality. Slayer was my favorite game mode in Halo. I like to PvP. Slayer and RuneScape. No, I'm just kidding, but you get what I'm saying. You ever considering covering a fighting game? Yes, absolutely. I will, for sure. When I heard that MP comment, I got nervous about the future of Halo, both in terms of my love for the campaign and the fact that I don't much care for comp, directions I don't want to go. Yeah, you know, it's just, that didn't get talked about enough, I think, in the video. Like, I really appreciate the positive receptions I got about it, but I wish more people would have talked about like the balancing aspects. I don't think that gets talked about enough with Halo Infinite, which is that it's too balanced. It feels like almost sterile because it's overbalanced. And if that's not because of competitive inclinations, I don't know what is. Like previous Halos, it's funny, I had a weird comment where someone was like, it's not like in the previous Halos, the other weapons weren't that powerful. It's like, bro, I can 1v1 you right now with a Needler in Halo 2 with you having the BR. Like, you want to take that fight? Anybody? Because the Needler can win that fight the majority of the time. I'm telling you guys, the Needler is a powerful weapon in Halo 2. It is not a troll weapon. There's literal clips of pro players picking it up and shitting on people. Like, funny clips even of them doing that. It wasn't because the guy that they killed sucked. In fact, in one of the clips, one of the best players in the world kills one of the other best players in the world with the Needler in Halo 2. And it's a famous clip, but it's like, that's what Halo used to be. You could kill people with like silly, dumb weapons all the time. Then Halo started to become very, very organized, very competitive. Suddenly all the games started to feel like, or all the guns started to feel balanced. But that doesn't really make that much sense, right? Because why would the guns be balanced around each other, especially different technologies? You know what I'm saying? And I think that there's so many elements like that that's just missing, that makes the guns and their powers feel unique as well. So I think that hurts the casualness of Halo, but I also think that, very honestly, the fact that there's no proximity chat and there's no lobbies pre or post just kills any chances that you can make any friends. Yeah, Mr. Zero Sins, I kind of agree. They're less interesting unless they were massive failures. Exactly, Defcoat. But I'll look up that clip since I know people are going to be interested. Sorry. Still not feeling so well.
Needlers, uh-oh. Is T squared over there? I got presents for him.
Look how fast that guy dies. Look.
Just unloading on T squared with the Needler.
Well,
he missed the majority
right there to T squared, saying your team does not belong in this match against Final Boss. Yeah! That is that's some showmanship right there. I don't know. T squared.
wait, you guys gotta see T Squared's reaction.
That's some showmanship right there.
T Squared was like the biggest trash talker in Halo. Look at his reaction. Like, you think T Squared's thinking, you can't kill me with the Needler? It's not balanced. It's like, we kill people with shit like that all the time in Halo 2. It's kind of what made the game fun. But you see him pick up the Needlers and literally say, I'm gonna go track this guy down. The guy he was tracking down is a guy that's like considered top 10 in the game. So like, no one can make arguments like, oh, but that's a good player beating a bad player. It's like, That's the best player beating the other best player with a Needler. And he killed him a couple of times. Like, in that video. Like, he kills him a couple of times with the Needler. And again, why? Is it just for disrespect purposes? No, Walshy's not stupid. He knows the Needler's powerful as fuck. Come on. It's a powerful-ass weapon. I shared your Death of a Game Halo Infinite video on the Steam forums of Halo Infinite, and it was silently deleted. Well, I appreciate you sharing my content. Even if you guys can't donate or watch my videos all the time or like them, sharing is another way to support my content, so I really appreciate that. Sea of Thieves has a higher concurrent player count? Yikes. I did not know that. That's crazy. I'm actually caught up in chat for once, which means that I probably should end my stream pretty soon. Again, I'm still sick. I've been like congested. I don't really know what. I felt sick like last week, but I feel like I've just had the remnants of like a viral infection. And that's the thing I hate about viral infections, dude, is they'll be stuck in your lungs and you just have to like cough them out for like 2 weeks straight. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's no easy way to get over it. And I've been trying to drink a lot of fluids. Like I have my water. Like, I even have my Gatorade stuff. Like I'm trying, but it's just a lot of dispersing whatever's inside of me through here, you know, through heat. No, I'm just kidding. My ears. I think there's a couple of them, Green Sky. I just can't think of them off the top of my head, I'll be honest. Any thoughts on the upcoming game Wayfinder? Not a whole lot of thoughts yet, but it looks interesting. I don't know if that's useful for you, but all right, let me cover the stuff that I actually wanted to cover really quickly since I didn't cover that stuff. Let's talk about Mortal Online 2. They just introduced a territory control and siege system. Apparently full-on siege system and territory system, which I'm a bit surprised by. I thought that this was going to take them forever to do, and although I think the game is still very clunky and kind of just subpar in a lot of ways, I think that this really helps build the whole team and overall world feel of the game. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Like the scale of the sieging here, it's pretty impressive. So congratulations to Mortal for being able to implement this into their game. This is like every MMO's dream, naturally. Siege warfare and territory control. So best of luck to them, and I hope it goes well. I might even check it out if I hear some good things about it. Throne and Liberty has been delayed to 2024. Apparently, they have also added moving while attacking. So it looks like enough of the outpour from negative the fan base, the backlash regarding it being made for mobile devices, which is why it had pauses. Apparently, they're willing to delay the game and make it more so stacked back into the way for PC games. That being said, like the top comment here says, I can't believe we're actually celebrating just getting 2006 movement again. So, yeah. They're, for some reason, realizing that that probably wasn't the best idea and they're fixing it. That's good. But I don't know, something rubs me the wrong way about this. Like, part of it feels like this is just their best chance of trying to bring anybody in. But like, are they actually going to like revamp the combat? It doesn't look like it. So that might be hollow for some people. Okay. We have some information for and from the Warhammer MMO that's being developed by Jack Emmert, the very controversial and not so liked developer from Cryptic fame. In the interview, he essentially talks about his love for MMOs, love for Warhammer, and then I don't know, it gets really interesting because he starts to talk about essentially what they're trying to design the game as, and the details that he gives are essentially that Warhammer is going to be a PvE focused story MMO that doesn't have PvP or doesn't focus on PvP in any serious way. So that's the first big thing. And that's because Jack Emmert says he'll never focus on PvP throughout his entire career, blah, 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 whatever, like, specific thing he said regarding that. This is horrible news for me, guys. I'll be honest with you. You know why I think this is horrible news? Because not just because they're going to make a theme park PvE game, those can still be great, and I can still love those types of games. The problem is I don't think they're going to make a very good one, and on top of that, I mean, this is a guy who left Cryptic with not such a good reputation to form his own studio, then somehow got access to the Warhammer IP to make his own game for it. And the only thing this guy has ever made besides his first, game that he worked on, City of Heroes, has been essentially clones of each other. So Star Trek, Neverwinter Online, and Champions Online all play on the same engine, all play almost exactly the same, almost look relatively the same, and have the same issues in many cases too. So that's not to say that he'd still be using that engine. I don't know if he could or couldn't. I guess the point that I'm making is that what would I be thinking that he would have learned from any of that, or magically been like taken all of those lessons and created into something better? I don't have anything to go off of to think that. Now, mind you, if I played the game and it was amazing, then it's amazing, right? You're going to appreciate the game regardless. But you see what I'm saying? So you're trusting a guy that took the Neverwinter Night online franchise, or the Neverwinter Nights franchise, and turned it into a theme park subpar game that's worse than the community-based, servers. Like, for anyone who's ever played them, there's far more that you can customize and do on the community-moderated servers than on the actual Neverwinter Online MMO. I cannot stand that game. It's not a Neverwinter game except in lore. I'm sorry. Doesn't feel like they even took away the creation system in the game, which is what Neverwinter was known for, by the way. It's module system. That's what I was playing and modulating on when I was a kid, guys. So yeah, don't have the most positive view of Jack Emmert. From multiple sources, multiple people have told me not very good things about him, including people who worked on City of Heroes originally, including people who worked at Cryptic Studios with him on other projects, and so on and so forth. Also, most publicly, there's even articles that talk about him not necessarily being as liked. So I'm not trying to create narratives, just basically restating what I've already experienced myself or been told by other people. The other thing that's come out is that ArcGage 2 development has completed in the second half of, or will be completed in the second half of 2024. The interesting thing is that apparently there's going to be a very big focus on the single player experience. Remember, this is using Unreal 5, so although it will have a open world, there's going to be a lot more things that players can do on their own in a single player like experience. I don't know what that means. This is translated from Korean. Unfortunately, you can fill in the blanks. That could mean maybe, they're not going to make the game as massive, or it could be that they're keeping it as massive, but they're going to add a lot more single player types of things in there. Like, for example, like Final Fantasy, or Elder Scrolls Online, or Star Wars The Old Republic. Which could be a good thing, I think, actually. Especially attracting another type of player that otherwise wouldn't have been attracted to the game. But also means some bad things. And the final thing I'm going to react on stream on is that there is some recent gameplay showcase for Ashes of Creation, and I'm going to showcase that. Because I've always been hard on Ashes of Creation and new MMOs regarding their gameplay, but I really wanted to cover this since, here's some early gameplay. Now, mind you, this is some very early gameplay. This is alpha. This is, subject to change, so on and so forth. But I wanted to give people kind of an idea of what we're looking at here with Ashes of Creation, and also give people an idea of kind of how I break things down like this. So the first thing I'm going to say is that I like the color palette used on his abilities. It's all relatively within the same flavor. So it feels like it's cohesive to me. Other things are, I personally feel like with less players on the screen, there's not nearly as much particle effects as I've noticed before. Could just be the classes, could just be the abilities they're using. You know, it gets a little messy right there, moments like that. Like the ice shouldn't lay on the ground for probably that long, right? Like, I know these things might seem like minutia, but it's like, it's not, because all of this adds up to a gameplay and combat experience. Yeah, so the particle effects so far, I think there's been a big improvement. They're not nearly as exaggerated. I feel like they're clearly kind of telling you what's going on. I wish there's a little bit more readability in terms of the rhythm of combat. Right? Things seem like herky-jerky because they're not operating on rounds. And for people not understanding what that means, in continuous games, they're still operating on a round, right? Every attack per second is a round, give or take. So you have round systems still occurring even in MMOs, and sometimes they're based on GCD. So however long your GCD is, like in this case, I can't tell you how long a GCD is because they're not pressing multiple abilities. But most of the time, GCDs are anywhere from 1.5 seconds to absurdly long, like Final Fantasy XIV's 3.5 or 4 seconds. But that exists because of console players, so to be clear. Delays that large have never existed in MMO history without appealing to console players. So Ashes of Creation, as far as I don't know if it's actually appealing to console players, so maybe they won't have to adhere to any of that. But the gameplay speed looks okay for me so far. Not amazing, not... Massive improvement, though. I'll say it's a big improvement because there's not nearly as crazy particle effects on the screen and I can't identify what's going on. I still think there needs to be a little bit better readability. And I think that one thing that's very lacking, and you guys can probably see it in this sequence here, is that the monster barely makes any noise or sound or reactions when it's being
synergy
hit.
Of the Holy Trinity.
See, you can barely tell. You can tell that they're swinging their weapons and attacking, but there's no feedback on if they're actually hitting their target, and the target doesn't even move. So that's going to be a big problem they're going to have to fix, is that right now it's just kind of like a static model that's attacking them and doing damage. It's not actually reacting to their hits or seeming like it has any feedback. So that would be the biggest improvements, I would say. But there's my little short breakdown. Do I have any expectations for the Riot MMO? Oh, so there was some recent information about the Riot MMO where apparently one of the guys in charge literally told another investor that if he was a designer, he wouldn't stake his name on the job or the career or the project. I don't know if that's just some bad leakage, it's not true, or... But guys, when one of the leads on your company is saying that, maybe it makes sense that Ghostcrawler left Riot and went and made his own game or is trying to make his own MMO. Who knows, but I've heard some negative rumblings about Riot, and that sucks because before that I was hearing positive rumblings. So those positive rumblings have become negative, unfortunately. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. The next step of the game is going to be Fly for Fun, or Fly FF. So make sure to check that out next week. Should be coming out pretty soon. I hope you guys enjoyed the Halo video, all the drama that surrounded it. Or not, if you did, or just the video, if you guys just like the own video. How did you call... Oh, you mean what his name was? His name's Ghostcrawler. Ghostcrawler was an old school developer on WoW. I don't remember his original title. Maybe it was just game designer, but I can't tell you his original title, but I would say a relatively well-known MMO designer developer, especially comparative to most, since most of them are not well-known or and nobody even knows who they are. But yeah, so he's a pretty good one, Ghostcrawler. He went and formed his own studio, and they're in the process of like making basically their own game, so their own MMO, and that was following all of the Riot turnout and stuff like that. So Fly for Fun is going to be fun, no pun intended, to cover, because it's such an interesting and weird title at the same time. I felt the same way, Necro Banana. Like, after I had my friend had access to flying, I just watched him fly around and I was kind of like, all right, that's the game, you know. But I was playing a lot of things back then, to be fair. Seems to me like MMOs are really fucking hard to design well. At least that's what I gleaned from Josh Strife's. It depends, right? Like, you know, I know it depends is always like the biggest nerd argument, but It depends on the scale and what you're trying to accomplish. I think that that's the problem, is a lot of developers don't have an idea in mind what they're trying to make and how big they want it to be beforehand. So they kind of figure that out during the process, and it doesn't work that way. Worlds don't function that way. In fact, worlds have never functioned that way because we're essentially creating them in ways that almost like gods do. Gods create worlds, right? So like we're creating these worlds, and so we have to like literally figure out how to like reverse engineer our own world to make it function in a game, and then also make it function with whatever rules and whatever universe and IP they're utilizing. That's the hard part, right? That's where it gets complicated because there's a lot of moving parts, if that makes sense. So the difficult part with MMOs is that there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of teams, a lot of teamwork that needs to be had, unified visions are needed, larger budgets on average, just being honest, not necessarily the biggest, because again, scale can dictate that, but generally speaking, gonna be some of the biggest budgets. So those are some of the reasons why it's hard to make MMOs. But it's not hard in the sense that if you take tried and true methods and basically rehash them with a couple extra bells and whistles, you can generally get away with that. Right? But that stopped working probably over the past, like, the last major MMO that came out, I think was like besides New World, was like 2013. So besides New World and Lost Ark, like we hadn't seen an MMO for 5 or 6 years before that. So that essentially, that's another part of the problem, is that a lot of these games try to come in with that mindset of let's just copy everything and do a little bit better, and they didn't do enough. And the ones that did do it enough have stuck around. And they only stuck around because they're massively popular and already had pre-existing audiences. So people think that just copying WoW was a success, but if Final Fantasy wasn't Final Fantasy and didn't have Yoshi P, it wouldn't have been successful. If Elder Scrolls Online didn't do Tamriel Unlimited and wasn't modeled much after SWTOR and WoW, it wouldn't have succeeded anymore. It was not doing very well at the time because the type of game that they tried to make wasn't really working, right? So those types of games right now, they all seem kind of like samey, but that's because those are the ones that were able to copy and actually survive. The majority of the ones that copied just died. They couldn't last. They didn't have pre-existing audiences. They didn't have reasons to care about their world, right? Yeah, if only ESO had better combat. Don't get me started. That was another game I alpha tested, and I don't know, I'm gonna sound weird, but like the combat in the game was different back then. It did change, and it probably largely changed for the better, but I can't help but feel like the version that I played was for PC, and the versions that came later on that I played and like the more open beta was for console, because I always felt like the game got worse. Like no one ever believed me because the performance largely improved. But I felt like the actual gameplay and movement in the game, it's one of the first times I've ever experienced a game get worse, like, was actually ESO. I think ESO was actually better in beta. I'm literally not even kidding, guys. I think the game literally got worse, so I don't know if that was because they went to consoles or what, but yeah. You prefer ESO combat over mainline TSS games? Or TES games? You know, as much as I would want to jump on that and just like meme you, I can't really, to be honest. Because if you're not into action combat, then you're not gonna like anything from Oblivion on. And if you don't like RPG combat, then you probably won't like anything from Morrowind before. And if you don't use mods, then, well, you might not like any of the combat systems because they're pretty reliant on mods to be really good. So I'm not just gonna be like, nah, it's bad. But that being said, I think ESO has one of the worst combat systems I've ever played. Like in a mainline game, it's on par with SWTOR's combat system for me, which is just, they're the same engine, guys. I'm not trying to create a narrative. They're literally the same fucking engine. Mind you, the ESO one's a bit different. It has a lot different architecture, but the engines are relatively the same, and they both play like utter doo-doo. Like horrible performance, FPS dropping, you know, floaty combat. Yeah, and that's why I didn't want to jump on him, Mr. Zero Sins, because, like, yeah, I can't really say that myself either. I love the TES games, and Morrowind's my favorite, but is the combat really that great? Like, nah, honestly, not really. Alright guys, on that note, I'm going to go let my puppy out. I've been streaming for a bit. I'm sweating. The kids aren't going crazy, so I could have probably opened my window more, but it's alright. It's whatever. It was good to talk to everybody about Halo Infinite, about questions about my character, like Nerd Slayer, the origin, as always. That's always something that we end up covering. MMOs and why they succeed or why they fail. We talked about that. We talked a lot about some different news that came out. It might be a coincidence that I like sports. It is, but I don't think there's anything necessarily horrible about that. Thank you, A. Brown. I appreciate it. Combat alone is what's carrying Destiny 2, even though the rest of the game's absolutely trash. You know what? I probably would agree with that, but I don't know enough about the game, so don't take my opinion seriously. Off topic, but have I ever played Kenshi? Not enough, honestly. And I end up liking Mountain Blade much better, man. Sorry. But yeah, I just wanted to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you for the feedback on the Halo video. Stay tuned for the next video, Fly for Fun. I'm also going to put out a side video, or maybe 1 or 2 of them, so stay tuned for that as well. If you have any other questions you'd like to get, just save them for me for the next stream on Wednesday. And have a good rest of your week. Oh, we didn't even talk about Baldur's Gate. Damn. Well, Baldur's Gate's amazing right now. So, like, I've just been enjoying playing Baldur's Gate. If you haven't played it already, it's worth the hype. It's a great game, even if you play by yourself. I just love it. So, go check it out if you haven't. Baldur's Gate's awesome. It makes me excited, and I know it sounds weird because it's not an MMO, but it still makes me very excited for the storytelling potential of MMOs and online RPGs in general. That's another great thing.
This is a song about our favorite gun. The Needler. Sing it, Christina. Needler gun, you're so wonderful. You and me, so deadly. Needler gun, when I'm holding you, they laugh at me because you're pink. You are beautiful, no matter what they say. Those nerds won't bring us down.
Hell yeah.
You are beautiful
They won't bring us down.
in every single way.
Hit it.
Those
Hit it, John.
nerds won't bring us down. Oh no. I think it's Needler time today. Sing it, sister. Yeah. Running around on the battlefield, got sex appeal.
Hell yeah.
'Cause I do wield.
He's a head turner.
So keep your sword, keep your SMG, and feel the pain of needle brain. Take it, soul sister.
You are beautiful, no matter what they say.
Dying over here.
Words can't bring you down. No, no.
You are beautiful in every single way.
Those words can't bring you down.
Oh no! Don't you bring me down today.
No matter what we do, no matter what we do, no matter what we say. Everywhere.
literally mute myself. I was about to start dying. Oh crap. I'm literally dying, guys. Sorry. Yeah, I should sing this song next. But this was like what Halo community was back in the day. Was the most random dumb videos. Halo 2 machinimas were peak. I love YouTube poops, but Halo 2 machinimas are pretty amazing to me too. You gonna sing Dua Lipa next year? I got you. Oh yeah, Dua Lipa. See ya, Rafael. Rafael Ribeiro. All right, that was a good note to end on. Let's play my actual theme song. All right, ready? Big picture mode. Here's the real theme song.
This is a song about our favorite gun.
I'm just kidding.